Tired of bloating, fatigue and sluggish digestion? Meet your gut's new best friend, NutriHealth 365's microbiome supplement. Restore balance, boost immunity, and feel amazing from the inside out. Smart delayed release capsules, real results. Gut health just got personal.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Trending. We've got major pandemic exercises in the UK. Jury trials are to be scrapped, and they seriously don't want us travelling. Welcome to today's episode of Trending. As always, brought to you in association with NutriHealth 365. The link is in the description below. Now, before I get to the first story, I just want to kind of give it a bit of setup. So obviously here in the UK, we've had the COVID inquiry, a lot of people calling it a whitewash. It is basically the government marking their own homework. I'm sure they're to be trusted. Now, what they found is that they should have locked down harder and they should have locked down faster. Now, just to give you my thoughts on that, a lot of people are very unhappy, of course, with what happened in terms of the so-called pandemic and the government response to it. Obviously, you've got different ends of the spectrum in terms of what your beliefs are about COVID and all that sort of stuff. But either way, no matter what end you are, you're not so happy with the government. So in terms of a complete whitewash, where they basically just say, hey guys, we did great. We did so great. And we've done an inquiry and it found that we did so great. That's not really going to fly with either side of that spectrum, to be fair. Now, what they can't do either is come out and say, yeah, mate, we should not have locked down. They were bad. Yeah, lockdowns were bad. We destroyed businesses. We destroyed the economy. We destroyed children's childhoods, mental health. We created more alcoholism, drug addiction. Suicides went through. Yeah, whoa. Mate, that was bad. Sorry about that. They can't do that either, because what that does is that takes any lockdowns in the future off the table. Because, say for instance, they come up with something else and they go, right, we need to lock down. People are going to go, hang on, you had an inquiry, remember? Do you not remember the results of that? And that inquiry told us that was a really bad idea. Oh yeah, it did, didn't it? So what to do? So what I think they've done, to be honest with you, is they've gone all the way the other way. And they've managed to flip it and turn it to their advantage by saying, yeah, we did mess up. Yeah, we didn't do great, did we? Appeasing at least one demographic of those that are not happy with the government. Next time, what we should do, we should lock down harder and faster. And that would have saved 23,000 lives. Where'd you get that number from? Trust me, bro. It's a computer model. Well, Neil Ferguson's computer model. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's believable. So they've done that, right? So that's the setup for me. So just in the last kind of few days, they've announced that, yeah, we should have locked down harder and faster, which means next time there's one, that's what they're going to go for. And if people complain, they'll go, whoa. We had an inquiry, remember? Do you not remember? 23,000 people. You don't want them dead. Let's lock down. So with that in mind, let's lead on to the first story today. UK concludes biggest pandemic simulation with virus targeting children. I mean, the timing. This autumn, the UK conducted Exercise Pegasus, the country's biggest pandemic simulation in nearly a decade, and its first Tier 1 national emergency exercise since COVID-19. There's always drills. There's always simulations, exercises. Now, whether you believe in conspiracies or not, some of you will think we're all mad. Even if you think we're all mad, you can't deny the fact that they're always carrying out drills. Always. And always at the important moments. 9/11, there was a drill going on at the same time. 7/7, there was a drill going on at the same time. Boston Marathon, there was a drill going on at the same time. Event 201, 6 weeks before COVID. Basically telling you everything that was going to happen, including the mass censorship of social media. They tell you. And actually, even recently in Cambridgeshire, where you had the guy going mad on the train and stabbing people to death, horrendous. The fact that they had done a few months before a simulation of the exact thing in the exact same place. So like I say, whether you think we're all tinfoil hat weirdos, you can't deny the fact that there's always drills going on. So every time I see a drill or an exercise, I'm suspicious, especially when it's timed like this. Concluding last month, it involved ministers, all devolved nations, Cobra activation, and every major government department. It's sounding like Event 201, isn't it? But on a national level rather than a global level. Participants faced a fictional novel strain of endovirus, DS68EVD68. I don't know what that means. It's like an eye test. That originated on the imaginary Southeast Asian island of Musiaya after a food festival. Now it's basically Event 201. Swap food festival for wet market. We've got COVID. If Johns Hopkins University turn up, right, I'm on the pitch. Unlike COVID-19, the simulated virus primarily killed infants, children and teenagers, causing respiratory failure, brain swelling and occasional paralysis. So there we go, target the kids. Target the kids. It's huge, targeting the kids for fear and therefore compliance. It's massive. If you think with COVID, the average age of a COVID death, this is if you believe the narrative, which of course I don't, and I assume a lot of you don't either, but let's pretend we do. Okay, let's drink the Kool-Aid. Let's pretend we do. The average age of a COVID death was 81.5, and people lost their frickin' minds. Imagine if the average age was 14. Absolute carnage. Absolute carnage. When the average age was 81.5, right? It's a true story. I went out for a walk with my little one. She was, I don't know how old she'd have been at the time. What was she? 2018. So she's 2.5, whatever, right? And I went out for a walk and there's a guy coming towards me on the pavement. He's younger than me, right? So he's not like he's one of those like old, terrified, pensioners that's just had BBC News 24 banging their head in. And he's holding a baby, like a newborn. So I'm holding the hand of my little and he's holding a baby. It's a magical moment. So we go to walk towards him. He panics because, do you know what I mean? Bloke and a 2.5-year-old, it's terrifying. He stepped into the road. He didn't look. He literally, with a newborn, stepped into the frickin' road. And I looked at him like, oh, mate, you're shot. And that was with an average age of 81.5. The 3-phase drill began, that was easy for me to say, I'll start that again. The 3-phase drill began in September with regional spread in Asia, progressed in October to a WHO-declared pandemic. Oh yeah, now we are Event 201. With school closures, hospital strain, got to protect the NHS, remember? The hospital's empty. Shush. Stop filming, I'll put you in prison. And street protests over social distancing. Well, I hope we're featured in that part. Then it escalated in November to national lockdowns. Non-essential business shutdowns. What is a non-essential business? I asked this in 2020. If your business feeds your family, pays your mortgage, it's essential, mate. Isn't it? Doesn't matter what it is, it's essential. So yeah, non-essential business shutdowns. Again, no one's told me what non-essential means. Travel bans and fears of food shortages. Oh yeah, here we go. We are ticking the boxes, ladies and gentlemen, from potential pig herd infection. So we're even ticking the old box of, well, stop eating meat then, because they're all infected. Yeah, get yourself, well, crickets are all right, aren't they? Yeah, get them down your neck, they're fine. I'm looking at this and I instantly think, and I've mentioned this a few times, Bill Gates. Do you remember Kermit the Frog when he stood next to his ex-wife? Are they divorced yet? Because he was knocking about with Epstein. He's a good guy though. Where he's talking about the next one will get attention. It will get attention next time. And he does his little smirk, doesn't he? They always tell us, mate. Now, whether this is just an exercise and, nothing to see here, whatever, he didn't say that for no reason. And he didn't smirk in the way he smirked for no reason. Sir Peter Horby, Director of Pandemic Sciences Institute at Oxford University, said, the choice of an endovirus is a good choice. It's a good choice, even if he says so himself, because it is a real possibility with real risks, but it's different from what we've seen before. Okay, so the first question I guess people have with this kind of stuff is, how would they get away with it again? Do you know what I mean? Like, try it in 30 years, 40 years when, people have forgotten or died that remember it well or whatever. But pulling it now, do you know what I mean? It's only 5 years ago, mate. Like, people aren't goldfish. Some people are goldfish, mate. But, you know, it's a fair point. It's a fair question if you were thinking that, because COVID didn't, it didn't kill the masses of people. And people wouldn't comply if it was done in the same way again, where you basically just used existing symptoms. You just said, oh, yeah, it's basically, you get cold-like, flu-like symptoms. Are you sure it's not a cold or the flu? No. It's Wuhan, remember? So they just relabeled it. And, you know, we've spoke about it many times. I don't want to sound like a broken record, where you've got people that fell 11 foot off a ladder, caved their head in and went down as a COVID death. You had 2 out of 5 COVID deaths in one particular county in the state of Colorado, where, 2 out of 5 of the COVID deaths had gunshot wounds. The COVID bullet. Do you know what I mean? So you had that absolute nonsense. And also the numbers, like there was a swell of numbers, and then there was such a huge drop of numbers that actually it averaged out as no different. And I'm sorry, if you've got a massive pandemic, what do you mean there's no difference in deaths? And the reason it spiked and then it dropped is because you basically put sick people took them out of hospitals, stuck them in care homes. You stuck people on end of life protocols and killed them, basically. But if you're killing someone on a Tuesday, they're not then going to die on a Thursday, are they? Because they're already dead. So what they had that spike and then drop, when what they would have had is probably just a smack in the mic, probably just, that's a symptom of it, probably just, a flat line. So they went, oh, look, there's loads of people dying. Oh, no, there's no one dying anymore. Yeah, because you've already killed them, mate. Can't die twice. Unless you're James Bond. And then it's different. So, yeah, it's a good question. Like I say, couldn't use the same play again. You would imagine that they would need deaths, or at least the illusion of deaths, particularly if you're targeting kids going forward. If this was a genuine plan, and we have a event 201 again, it's easy to relabel 81.5-year-olds as COVID deaths, because unfortunately 81.5-year-olds pass away. It's over the average age of life expectancy in the United Kingdom. So if anything, getting COVID gave you an extra 4 or 5 years. That wouldn't work. So then you ask yourself, okay, well, how are you going to do that? And that's where things can get obviously potentially sinister. I mean, there's another way that you can cause stuff, in terms of you can create symptoms through panic, and you can manifest things through panic. And that happened a lot during COVID, ladies and gentlemen, where someone would have a cold. It's that time of year. It's March 2020. Yeah. Might feel a bit ropey, a bit bunged up. Oh, my chest is feeling a bit tight. And if I say to you, oh, yeah, it's cold season, isn't it? You go, yeah, I know, I get this every year. It's annoying, isn't it? Yeah. Get some chicken soup down your neck, mate. You'd be reet. What are you going to do? You'd be fine. If I say to you, really, if you do that, what's it feel like? Yeah, it feels a little bit like that, yeah. About your nose. Well, yeah, I can't smell like oh, God, mate. What? Sounds like COVID. What's COVID? COVID, what's that? It's a deadly pandemic, mate. You're buggered. What happens to that person then? That chest might feel that little bit tighter, mightn't it? Oh, mate, I'm sorry. And there's evidence of that, where they've done tests where in controlled, scenarios, where they've basically made someone believe that they've been poisoned. So someone will take a sip of the coffee. This gives me an excuse to drink the coffee. I drink far too much coffee. It's early in the morning though. But I drink coffee, and then someone says, that was poisoned. What? And then people start to struggle, breathe. There's nothing, no one's poisoned it, mate. It's in your head. So you can create that. And obviously we found that where people were doing that. You had the same thing as you had last year, Dave. But now you think it's a deadly... Mate, I remember you whinging on Facebook about the fact that you couldn't smell stuff last year. People forget. The other bit, which, as I say, is more sinister, is where we look at the vaccine and how, not that it was a vaccine, but where that comes into play. Because again, whatever you believe, whether you believe that it came from a wet market in Wuhan and it was deadly, right? If you're going with the official narrative, or you believe it was a Wuhan lab, it was a bioweapon, all that sort of stuff, Fauci's gain of function, all that stuff, whether you believe is absolute nonsense and it was a hoax and it was a redesignation of death certificates, whatever you believe in that, whether you're coming from a more conspiratorial mind or whether you're coming from a govern me harder, the state never lies to me mind, doesn't really matter. You kind of need, I think you'd struggle to pretend that the desperation to get the vaccine into everyone was quite something. It was pretty wild from the very beginning, when no one really knew what on earth was going on, and you've got this, thing that's come out of China. Apparently, some people in Italy are feeling a bit unwell. Although the TV's showing me footage of loads of coffins lined up, which are actually from the sinking of a cruise ship. So I'm asking questions, but no one really knows exactly what's going on. Straight away, Kermit the Frog, Bill Gates is out there. Bosh. No one gets their lives back until we got a vaccine. What? What do you mean a vaccine? So you're not trying to cure it then? You're not trying to treat people then? You're not trying to work out what... No, it's vaccine. Straight away, it was vaccine. Whatever you believe, if you believe I'm a nutcase, it doesn't... You got to admit the fact that that's true. Do you know what I mean? That they were so... It was the first thing on people's minds. Bosh. Need a vaccine. In fact, I remember a former friend of mine messaging me straight away, are you getting the vaccine? And my other mate popped into the group, was like, well, there isn't even one yet. And I was like, I think you know the answer to that. Of course I'm not. And then that was another reason to fall out. But everyone was desperate. Get it in people, get it in people. They coerced people left, right and centre. They shut down the schools. And even when then the vaccine advisory group in the United Kingdom said that they wouldn't recommend it for kids, Witty, Gollum from Lord of the Rings, he popped up with his next slide, please, to overrule them, to ensure that it got in more kids. Why? They didn't need it. Even if you believe the narrative, didn't need it, Gollum. But there was this real, it's got to get in people. So you go, okay, well, what was that all about then? What's the mRNA obsession about? What's the graphene oxide about? What's people showing up MAC addresses? What's the magnetism on the area of injection? All that stuff. Let's ask some questions about that. What's in the vials? Because the doctors don't know. Ain't got a Scooby. They're just whacking it into everyone left, right and centre, taking a few quid. They ain't got a Scooby what they're injecting. Why did it need to be frozen to such a ridiculously low temperature? Like, why all these things? So I interviewed a guy called Jesse Beltran for Bring the Fire last week. It's on Iconic now. If you don't subscribe to Iconic, you can watch that interview and everything else for a month for $1.99. And I would recommend watching that because, to be honest, like, I'm not a know-it-all. I know I might come across like that, but I'm not. But I've been around this stuff for a while. Do you know what I mean? It's not my first roller coaster. And I was sat there like that at some of the stuff that he was saying to me. And he's making the point that basically it's not just even people that are vaccinated, because they're spraying all this shite from the sky, stuff in the food, all this nanotech is essentially within people. So it's not beyond the realms that if they wanted to create the illusion of a virus, they could, through, 5G, 6G, whatever, whatever is going on, they could activate people and people could start dropping. As soon as people start dropping, you will find that all the people that bought COVID will buy it anyway. But to be fair, they'd buy it anyway. But a lot of the people that didn't buy COVID and resisted COVID tyranny would go, oh, mate, this one's different.
What is very disheartening, we not only use the JM20 Pro, I also am certified in what is called TSCM, which is Technical Surveillance Countermeasures. And in that field, you use what is called a nonlinear junction detector. Right. And what that does, it tests for silicon-based materials or semiconductive materials. And we have now moved away from, we still do it. We still help those who are symptomatic. But we're now testing the general population. And just recently, we had a retreat in which people of high academia come of all different backgrounds because we want to educate the general population about this phenomenon. And I'm also a master hypnotist, so there is a suggestibility and a programming aspect of this phenomenon. And after I did my presentation on positively reinforcing the subconscious mind, everyone wanted to be scanned. And I was quite surprised. But I said, okay, what the heck? What harm can it do? Typically, people who aren't symptomatic in the past always come up negative. But 100% of those individuals came up positive for indications of semiconductive material at the same very specific focal areas that we are finding in the symptomatic individuals. So now I have a hypothesis. Those people who are symptomatic are turned on, and those who are not symptomatic are turned off right now.
Like I said, sinister, very sinister, but it's, you know, it wouldn't shock me because we're dealing with demons. Ministers tested both containment and mitigation decisions, including whether early travel restrictions could keep the virus out of Britain. The exercise followed, wait for it, the exercise followed COVID inquiry findings. And there we have it. And it could just be a drill, like it could just be, but I think it's worth looking at. Because like I say, they're always pulling drills all the time. So it's worth looking at it and going, okay, well, what comes off the back of it? Because actually, even if this exercise doesn't then become something in 6 weeks like Event 201 did, that's not to say that their findings in the simulation won't then find their way into legislation and find their way into a pandemic response for the future. Because, you know, everything's connected and they're coming for everything. So if you look at it at the moment, we've got war with Russia, apparently, that no one wants. Apart from some weirdos in suits, they want it. The terrorism stuff, you know, that COVID cured suddenly came back again for a bit, you know, just after the announcement of digital ID, nothing to worry about. Pandemic is one, food shortages, which they're, you know, creating themselves, to be fair, by the destruction of the farming industry and building bloody solar farms on top of agricultural land and all that stuff. Energy collapse, well, they're doing that to themselves as well. All these things are happening at the same time to drag the people to their knees. The budget, which is coming out today, no doubt, will punch people in the groin again because they want people on their knees, because when they're on their knees, they'll accept everything that they offer to fix it and to save us. And of course, a pandemic plays perfectly into that. Even if it's not real, the illusion of one, or the fear of one, or we need to do this to stop it coming. So then we can put restrictions on travel and whatever else. And if they connect it to farming, then of course, you know, sorry, mate, like with foot and mouth, which again, Dr. Neil Ferguson or Professor Neil Ferguson, they can use as an excuse to cull an absolute bucket load of animals, destroying more farms, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? These things are happening all at the same time. However, I don't want to be a neg Nelly and a doom monger and a fear porner, because I'm not. And I think that knowledge and awareness is power. I think it is. It's power in the sense that you can act on it. So you can go, right, I can see what's going on here. Right, bosh. Also, the awareness of it helps you see through the gaslighting. And it stops you being manipulated. It stops your perceptions being manipulated, because you look at it and go, yeah, that's nonsense, mate. And I did a video the other day where I was talking about similar stuff. Really. I was talking about Jesse Beltran in that interview and how much it was kind of like, it was quite alarming. And I'm making the point that so much of the stuff that goes in is subliminal, and we react in a way to things that we don't even really know what we're reacting to or why we're reacting. And why is he acting like that? I don't know. Because we have this stuff all the time through social media as well as through legacy media. And I was making the point that, you know, there was an image, I got showed it years ago, you've probably almost certainly seen it. It's an image of 3 flowers, and you look at it and you're like, yes, 3 flowers, mate. Why am I looking at that? And then it was look, and it says sex. And you're like, mate, I didn't even see that. But my subconscious would have seen that. I don't know how I'd have reacted to it, but my subconscious would have seen the word sex. It would have gone in. I didn't consciously see it. I just saw 3 quite badly drawn flowers. So, right. Now, you show me that image now, same image, yes, sex. You see it straight away. So once you have the knowledge, once things are pointed out to you, then suddenly it's like, nah, I can see what you're selling now and I ain't buying. So as I say, could be just a drill. Certainly something to keep your eyes on with a pair of binoculars. That was a one eye symbolism. Operation Pegasus. I'm sure there's some symbolism there too, which Richard Willett will be all over. Now that's all for our social media element. But you can continue watching for free on iconic.com, and the link is in the description below.